Mr. Samuels asks, you're not retarded. You're just slow. Okay?
Frank, your breakfast ready?
Hurry up. I'm retarded?
Hello again, my friends. Would you like to try something different? Would you like to play a game? For these last 2 episodes of Ahsoka, let's divide the characters in this show up into 2 teams. Good guys and bad guys. Every time a character says, decides, or does something stupid that makes no logical sense, 1 point will be awarded. Then, for every better alternative that I can think of, 1 additional point may be awarded. I say maybe, because this is going to be somewhat more objective than figure skating. I hope. At the end of this video, we'll add up all the points, and whomever has the lowest score wins. But first, let's get the clickbegging out of the way. I hate it, you hate it, but it's gotta be done. Just go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell and the thumbs up thingy, and leave a comment if you feel like saying something. I would really appreciate it. We begin in a big city. Maybe this is Coruscant? Maybe it's some other Art Deco city planet. Who cares? It looks as though Bored Green Woman is on trial or something. Maybe she'll be held accountable for her actions. She's a female with green privilege though, so I'm not holding my breath.
My job is to protect the people of this republic. And that is exactly what I was doing. In the best way I know how.
I see. And you protected the New Republic by ignoring direct orders.
No, I protected the New Republic by ignoring you.
I was tempted to award a point right here, but in the context of this whole scene, I'm not sure it stands out as stupid or illogical. We'll see why in a moment. But as far as her statement goes, not committing the fleet to helping Ahsoka was a group decision. She can single out the white male substitute all she wants, but he's a politician, just like the rest of these committee creeps. His accountability for any decision is dispersed. At the same time, Bored Green Woman is an officer in a military hierarchy, so she's much more accountable for her decisions. If the only way she knows how to defend the New Republic can involve not following orders, that's very much her problem.
Senator Ziono, can we at least agree that General Syndulla's actions brought to light that there was an incident on Satos?
An incident, yes. But this report reads like a child's fairy tale. Jedi. False Jedi. Star maps, star whales, distant galaxies.
Bro, what universe do you think this is? In living memory, this galaxy was ruled by a man that could shoot lightning out of his hands. Some people can move objects without physically touching them. A giant duck with special needs was elected to public office. Fanciful things happen in this universe all the time. Star maps and star whales are closer to known facts than old wives' tales. So why is Asian male so skeptical? Because the script needs him to be. Why does the script need him to be? Because other than Bored Green Woman bothering to ask for permission in the first place, the only thing sustaining this whole subplot is Asian male's determination to be a no-fun, mean grumpy pants. If Bored Green Woman really has authority over this fleet, there's no established rule in the Star Wars universe, at least that I'm aware of, that says she would have to ask permission to send 1 or 2 ships on a fact-finding mission. How about just 3 ships? Like these 3 ships. The ships that chased after her. According to the internet, these cruisers are nearly the size of an MC-80. They have fighters, they have lasers, they have tractor beams. 3 of them could probably have slowed the hyperspace ring down, if not crippled it. Without the delay caused by going and asking a committee for permission, they probably could have arrived with Ahsoka and put an end to this whole affair. But no, we had to have a contrived fiasco disguised as a natural conflict in order for the rest of the story to happen. And now that the story doesn't need this mess anymore, Bored Green Woman is about to get a royal pardon.
Identification, I do not...
Get ready, everyone. Are you ready? Ready?
I am C.
3PO.
C-3PO shows up to name-drop Princess Leia and put his programming to the ultimate test.
What are you telling them?
I do believe they think I am some sort of god.
Well, why don't you use your divine influence and get us out of this?
I beg your pardon, General Solo, but that just wouldn't be proper.
Proper?
It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
Why, you...
Impersonating a deity? That's going too far. Perverting the course of justice? No problem.
The transcript shows that Senator Organa personally sanctioned General Syndulla's reconnaissance mission to Cetos, being regrettably unaware that Senator Ziono had held a vote against such a mission. Without her.
This is preposterous.
To be fair to 3PO, Leia might have just given him the message, and for all he knows, she was telling the truth. Unfortunately, the Star Wars universe is so badly damaged at this point that I would be happy to flip a coin on this one. Maybe the whole thing was 3PO's idea. Anything is possible now. This is so dubious that it reminds me of Harry Potter, constantly getting bailed out without a hint of shame. Professor Snape will be ripping him a new one. "You really packed the bag this time, Potter. You're going to be double expelled." Then Dumbledore comes in and he's like, 1 million points to Gryffindor. And that's it. Harry is off the hook. Then it gets worse.
I don't know what you and Leia are playing at, but I know she did not authorize your mission.
She did. Eventually.
That's right. It's a galactic banana republic. How many people in this room at least suspects that perjury was just committed and the court looked the other way out of favoritism? If this system is willing to bend for a third-tier hero like Borg Green Woman, think of the total evasion of law that someone like Princess Leia or Mon Mothball could get away with to save their own skins. I'm not sure if this is supposed to be world-building by Filoni or some kind of cynical political commentary. Maybe he just thought some of the respect that the fans have for Leia might rub off on Borg Green Woman, and this was the way to do it. As I said, the whole context of this scene is in question. Like a lot of writing these days, I don't know if I'm getting propaganda, satire, or just the worldview of an adult child. Then we're back with the whales, swimming through hyperspace. Ahsoka is sweating it to the oldies. Christian Hayden is there too, fulfilling the terms of his contract. Ugly Droid comes in and tells her that the whales are slowing down, so maybe that means they're about to stop. Then they go to the cockpit to discuss the plan that they don't have.
Once we drop out of hyperspace, we find Sabine.
And how do you propose we do that? If we have indeed traveled to another galaxy, our star charts will be useless.
She came here with the enemy. We find the enemy, and we find Sabine.
Direct and to the point, as always.
Instead of paying Ahsoka this undeserved compliment, he should have said something like, "So how do we find the enemy?" Then Ahsoka could have said something like, "Well, the enemy went with Sabine, so if we find Sabine, we find the enemy." To which Ugly Droid could have asked, "So how do we find Sabine?" And then both their heads could have exploded, or they could have just kept going. Why not? If the goal was to fill a couple more precious watch minutes, a Who's On First routine could have done just as well.
Let's take it from the top. The top of what? Name. My name?
No, my name.
I do not know your name.
You play games with me, mister, and you're through.
I am? May I go now?
What do you think? He's a Rusky. That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. Of course he's a Rusky, but he's a retard or something.
Then the whales drop out of hyperspace and into a minefield.
At least the whales are providing some cover.
Then the whales decide that they don't like explosions, so they leave.
You had to say something.
That's gratitude for you. Or maybe gratitude was never in the cards. For all we know, Ahsoka used a Jedi mind trick to get the whales to agree to this in the first place. Ahsoka and Ugly Droid make it out of the minefield by flying all over it. Some budget fighters come after them, so they go and hide in all the dead whale stuff. Naturally, this works like a charm. Liquor Snurf and Evil Old Woman have a discussion about this turn of events.
Withdraw the fighters and have them stand by.
Why not allow them to follow?
There's no need to waste our resources.
With due respect, Grand Admiral, without pursuit, we shall lose them in the debris field.
You're quite right, of course. Jedi are very good at hiding. They've been practicing that for years. However, we are getting to know our adversary. And if she's anything like her master, she'll be unpredictable and quite dangerous. Which is why we must control all variables. Put her on a path of her own choosing.
As we shall soon see, Liquor Snurf is going to try to flush Ahsoka out of her hiding place, and then she's going to get chased by the same fighters all over again. So whichever direction she chooses to flee, yeah, that would be a path of her own choosing, and the same resources will be committed. But here's another idea. Rather than flushing her out, why not just wait her out, or actively prevent her from leaving the whale cloud? If the goal is to prevent her from interfering with the departure of the Star Destroyer, that would be a good start.
So that no matter which direction she takes, we'll always be one step ahead of her.
I love this kind of dialogue.
This is the Clone Wars!
It's like the text of a 4-page treatment was just expanded into a script with no rewriting or polish. Lickersnurf could just as well be referring to himself in the third person here. It's particularly bad because at no point from here on is Lickersnurf ever one step ahead of Ahsoka. He just reacts to her. This is just the writer writing checks that his writing can't cash. It's okay though, because this gives Ahsoka and Ugly Droid a little quiet time to have a dumb conversation of their own.
I do not like this. How did they anticipate our arrival?
Thrawn was behind that attack.
It was more of a defense than an attack. But how do they know that minefield was laid specifically for them? This is a whole other galaxy, and the Snurf might have made some local enemies by now. Lickersnurf only knew that Ahsoka was coming because the Dune cosplayers used their space magic. Does Ahsoka know that? Does she know about the Dune cosplayers? How does any character in this show ever come to any conclusion about anything? Then we see 20-something and that guy cruising along with the snail crabs. No points awarded in this scene because no one really says or does anything meaningful unless you count 20-something trying to avoid talking about how they're both trapped here and she has no clue what to do about it.
Well, we could talk about something else, I guess. But you know, getting home is kind of important.
Ahsoka took me on as her apprentice.
She what? Why?
Then we see the two Darths and some not sand people watching from a distance. No points here either, unless it's for excellent eyesight. I had to watch this twice to find the snails. Oh wait, what's this over here? Nothing special, just some Hot Wheels that I borrowed from Ozma's toy box. Then we see the Dune cosplayers helping Lickersnurf out with his tabletop game. This hex map pattern gave me the first genuine feeling of nostalgia that I've ever had watching Disney Star Wars. Nostalgia for my youth, back when I was almost as bad at tabletop games as Lickersnurf is. Good old Fassa. I've never had so much fun being a loser. Next, we see Ahsoka watching some space shrimp swim around outside while Ugly Droid fails to find 20-something with the scanners.
Nothing. I cannot locate Lady Wren. Either my scans are being jammed, or there is too much debris.
Ahsoka decides to try using the Force, 'cause why not? And guess what? It works perfectly.
Ahsoka.
Maybe this was just a coincidence, but it appears to be implied that Ahsoka's use of the Force allows the Dune cosplayers to figure out where she is.
Open fire.
Assuming this is the case, I'd like to take this moment to point out how backwards the Star Wars universe has become. Continuous use of something technological like a scanning device didn't reveal their location, but using something well-nigh supernatural like the Force gives them away instantly. To be fair, it was George Lucas that started us down this confusing path when he informed us of the existence of midi-chlorians.
What are you doing?
Checking your blood for infections.
Not sure if someone is Force sensitive? Just do a blood test and see if it comes back positive.
The reading is off the chart. Over 20,000.
Just imagine the conversations you could have with a medical droid. So, his T-cell count is a bit low, but his midi-chlorian count is near Yoda levels. Also, he's got hepatitis B and HIV. To be even more fair, if Lickersnurf can't scan for them through all this whale sludge, then I guess it makes sense that they can't scan through it from inside. So it follows that the scan itself can't be detected from outside. But did Ugly Droid know that when he started scanning, if the goal was to remain hidden? Also, did they think we would forget this?
Where are they?
Shut the power down.
I protest. I have a lot of work to do.
Standard Jedi protocol.
I suppose that's true.
Shutting down.
So, can an individual life form be scanned for or not? We don't have to be told that this sort of scan will succeed every time. We don't demand that it always succeed. We would just like to know what is usually possible and why it's not always possible. And we would like to know what is usually impossible and why it's not always impossible. Have some rules and follow them. That's what we want. That's what we need. What we don't need or want is dumb writers doing whatever, whenever, pretending to be smart while making supposedly smart characters sound like babbling idiots. Does that make sense?
No, but that's okay.
One of the more difficult concepts to grasp in temporal mechanics is that sometimes effect can precede cause. A reaction can be observed before the action which initiated it. If your analogy is correct, how do we get through that sheet of ice? Look for a crack or make a crack. Take something and smack it into the ice until it buckles.
Wait a minute, what if we've already made a crack in the ice?
When we first entered the event horizon.
If we could find our entry point, we might be able to slip out the way we came in.
So, we'd be looking for a subspace instability in the event horizon. What would make it show up on our sensors? Warp particles. If we saturate the event horizon with warp particles, we might be able to see them escaping through the rupture we made when we entered.
So Ahsoka and Ugly Droid fly out of the whale dust and head for the planet.
Well done. We've flushed out of hiding.
Shall we prepare our defenses?
No, we're not the focus of the Jedi's attention. Tana will pursue Sabine Wren, whom we have wisely sent far from here.
Would it not have made more sense to keep them separated if this was really the plan, which it couldn't have been because he didn't know that Ahsoka was coming until the end of episode 6? You know what would have made more sense? If he had loaded 20-something onto one of these gunships and flown her as far away as possible while still giving the gunship time to return. Liquor Snurf could have said something like, "Sure, we'll take you to that guy's last known location," and then just sent her off in the opposite direction. It could have taken her weeks or months to find that guy, if ever. Ahsoka might now be headed for the other side of the planet, and that guy wouldn't have even known that any of this was happening. Nice job, Liquor Snurf. Now you've got 3 good guys in your backyard, and you're helping them find each other.
You went full retard, man. Never go full retard.
You know what else might have made more sense? If Liquor Snurf had just killed 20-something on the spot when he first met her back in episode 6, that would have been 2 less good guys to worry about, because that guy would still be clueless. I considered making this a drinking game at the start, but I figured that might have been socially irresponsible. Next, we see the 2 Darths watching that guy and 20-something. 20-something and that guy see the 2 Darths watching them, and then we get this moment of total senselessness.
Contact Thrawn. Kill Sabine Wren and Ezra Bridger. Then take your place in the coming Empire.
You won't help?
Your ambition drives you in one direction. My path lies in another.
This more than anything else bothers me. How can Darth Santa abandon Darth Punkrock at this crucial stage of her development as a person of lightsaber? What kind of master does that to their apprentice? That sounds like something Ahsoka would do.
One parting lesson, Shin. Impatience for victory will guarantee defeat.
Yeah, but who's really the impatient one here? He can't spare 5 more minutes to help Darth Punkrock dispatch a near cat lady, a dirty hippie, and a tin of smoked oysters. I'm not going to award any points here, I just think it's a lousy choice. Whether or not it makes sense doesn't enter into it. We don't even know what he's choosing. We have so little information to go on, we can't even guess if it makes sense or not.
Grand Admiral, we received a signal pinpointing Bridger's location.
Dispatch 2 gunships to assist the mercenaries. If Lord Balin proves capable, we may yet win the day.
Win the day? Okay, remember this from episode 6?
Grand Admiral, the mercenaries have departed.
Good. Prepare to attack squads. Wait for Lord Balin's signal.
Should we not send more troops to support them?
During this exile, our numbers have dwindled. So, no, 2 squads will suffice. Our primary objective is to escape this galaxy. It matters not whether Wren and Bridger are killed or stranded here. The same can be said for your 2 mercenaries.
So what's the deal, Snurf? Is this important or not? You know what would have made more sense? Sending the gunships and all of these things. More on that later. The not sand people chase the seafood across the buffet. One of the snailmobiles gets disabled, so that guy decides to circle the wagons. Except it's more of an open cluster than a circle. Whatever. Ahsoka is being chased by the budget fighters. She decides that she needs to get down on the ground, but Ugly Droid doesn't want to land while they're being shot at. So Ahsoka gets the brilliant idea of jumping off the ship while it's in motion.
3, 2, 1.
Cool staircase, though I think she might be using it wrong.
The rest of our discussion must, of course, be confidential. Would you wait outside?
If you'd like me to, yes. Excuse me. Thank you.
Mayday. I'll provide you with a drink.
was a good movie.
Does anybody else want to drop out?
I'm not going to award any points here, but I am going to point out that however fast Ahsoka's ship is moving, she is also going to hit the ground at about that speed. Feet first. Someone is going to point out that she did a little roll there, maybe to dissipate some of that energy. Fair enough. I guess her neck should be broken too. But this is Star Wars, and the Force is open-ended now, so let's not spend too much time pondering whether something is physically realistic or not. Especially when we have so many better questions to ponder, like, is this pointless or not? Or, how much of a ridiculous coincidence is this? In all of this vast terrain, she runs right into Darth Santa.
Disappointed?
No. However, can't allow you to interfere.
I don't have time for this.
Since when has that been a problem for her? Ahsoka spends time she doesn't have, like Disney spends money that their investors wish they could have back.
Hey, Bob.
Just when you thought she couldn't get any LARPier. Meanwhile, the not sand people are attacking the crab cluster. 20-something tries to talk sense into that guy, but he's way too high.
Take it!
I gave it to you. It's yours now.
At least take a blaster.
No. The Force is my ally. That's all I need.
I could almost forgive this if they chose to stick with it, but no. They got tired of dealing with the concept of an unarmed Jedi faster than the writers of Stargate Atlantis got tired of his baby. Which is a shame, because I thought this part was kind of cool. Even though I'm on Darth Punk Rock's side here. Let's just take a moment to consider how much better this show could have been with just one tweak. What if 20-something didn't have that guy's lightsaber? Maybe she never had it, or it was damaged or lost in a previous episode, or she left it on Ahsoka's ship. It doesn't matter. The point is, his barehanded use of the Force here wouldn't be a nonsensical choice. It would be a harsh necessity. He would have been elevated from a quirky nomad with questionable judgment to a serious hero that won't quit. Of course, he could just suck it up and carry a blaster like everyone else in this universe. I don't know. I would like to award an additional point here, but it's too circumstantial. We would have to reach all the way back to the first episode to set this up, or at least back to episode 4.
Close.
That's okay. Something even dumber happens when they see the gunships arriving.
Take her, now!
Did you catch that? It's a small detail, but the real dumb is in the detail. 20-something has a lightsaber. Darth Punk Rock has a lightsaber. That guy is empty-handed. 20-something still sucks at using the Force. Darth Punk Rock is an expert at using the Force. So is that guy. 20-something is not the best at using a lightsaber, but rather than attacking Darth Punk Rock with the lightsaber, at least as a distraction to give that guy an opening to use the Force, 20-something stands there and tells that guy to go attack her. Then, rather than using the Force to knock Darth Punk Rock backwards to give 20-something an opening to use the lightsaber, he just rushes at her like he's going to grab her or tackle her. So naturally, rather than letting that guy get any closer, Darth Punk Rock knocks him back with the Force, more or less knocking him out, so that she can go one-on-one with 20-something. She went from being outnumbered 2-1 to being evenly matched with a considerable edge. All she needed to do was hang on to her double-digit IQ long enough for Dumb and Dumber to bonk their heads together hard enough to screw themselves. 2 points to Gryffindor. In case you forgot, Darth Santa and Ahsoka are fighting too. Ugly Droid breaks it up by dumping a bunch of sparks on them, and then Ahsoka steals Darth Santa's reindeer. His reaction to this turn of events is so ponderous that I thought the episode was about to end. Just about 20 seconds. What's he doing here? Reevaluating his life? Calculating how long the walk is going to be? Maybe he's thinking, damn, if I just stayed with Darth Punk Rock for another 5 minutes. Nice job, Santa. The gunships land and the stormtroopers jump out. Lickersnurf and Evil Old Woman watch this unfold on their tabletop. Or at least they talk like they are.
Deploy teams 1 and 2. Use counter-encirclement tandem.
We have them.
Anyone that's awake might notice that there are only 2 teams, and they're already well on their way. So unless there's a bunch of stormtroopers still waiting inside these gunships, my guess here is that this episode got blown to smithereens in the editing room, or was planned very poorly, or both. Anyone that looks closely will also notice that the relative position of all these pods to each other and to the gunships doesn't match what's depicted on the tabletop. In fact, forget the tabletop. The position of the pods and even the total number of pods doesn't match from one exterior shot to the other. Speaking of poor planning, imagine if Lickersnurf had done it this way instead. Why not land the gunships on either side of the snail crab convoy? Close enough so that the troopers can shoot into the periphery of this cluster, but still far enough that anyone trying to close this distance would have to expose themselves completely. It's a bit hard to judge how far away these rocks are, but at the very least the troopers could have used the gunships as cover. All the troopers would need to do is keep the good guys from leaving this group of snail pods. Then 4 or 5 or more TIE fighters could circle and blast the living heck out of this spot until nothing is left alive. I don't know that this would have guaranteed victory, but it certainly would have worked better than sending the troopers right into this snail cluster. 2 points to Slytherin. The cherry on this stupid cake is how the troopers actually hesitate when that guy tells them not to shoot.
Destroy them.
Wait! We could talk or...
Fire!
Then Ahsoka shows up with a super smug look on her face that doesn't look at all out of place on someone that just spent 6 episodes f***ing her own shit up. Ugly Droid watches this from the air and talks to himself for a bit.
Well, they're all back together. I hope I survive long enough to see the outcome.
Well, those budget fighters were told to kill you about 12 minutes ago, and they've been shooting at you for no less than 8 minutes. So I think you might be okay for a little while longer. Meanwhile, the Snurf watches with mild displeasure as the hex map starts changing to the sad colors.
Recall the gunships. Call off the aerial pursuit. In the grand scheme of things, one might even call this first match with Tano a success.
I see only our enemies reunited.
Yeah, no kidding.
Let me show you what I see. With our enemy distracted, the cargo transfer is now almost complete, which means we shall soon leave this forsaken place. Ahsoka Tano has lost the one thing she could not afford to lose today. Time.
Not including whatever time she spent hiding in the whale sludge, she lost about 9.5 minutes by my estimation, which is kind of academic since she's going to spend about the first third of the next episode literally moving at a snail's pace. How long is that in universe? At least long enough for that guy to do a rush job building a new lightsaber. Now, ask yourself this. If the bad guys had not attacked after Ahsoka was driven out of the whale cloud, if they hadn't chased her ship or attacked the snail caravan, would anything be different? Other than a bunch of stormtroopers and not sand people still being alive? No, not really. But we're getting way ahead of ourselves. The surviving stormtroopers run back to the gunships and fly away. Rather than going with the stormtroopers, Darth Punkrock just stands there, stupefied.
I can help you.
The last thing anyone needs is Ahsoka's help, so Darth Punkrock runs back to her wolf rat and rides away. I'm not going to award any points here. Darth Punkrock's had a bad day. The good guys are all reunited at the end of this penultimate episode, and those of us that like to binge watch have enough time to get a fresh barf bag, because like most episodes of Ahsoka, the end credits and the recap are about 15% of the running time. Fittingly, the last episode of Ahsoka, episode 8, is not the most boring episode, but it has the most embarrassing title. Is Dave Filoni a Narnia fan, or was he just out of ideas? It kind of works, though. Ahsoka is about as bland and insufferably righteous as Aslan. Evil old woman literally becomes a witch, and Liquor Snurf looks like it was carved out of wood, then painted blue. Anyway, we open with evil old woman giving Liquor Snurf some good news.
Grand Admiral, the cargo transfer is complete.
Good. Bring the Eye of Sion out of high orbit so that we may begin the interlocking procedure.
As we have been shown, Liquor Snurf has live inventory tracking that would rival Amazon. So why didn't they start bringing the hyperspace ring down well ahead of time, so they could leave right now? Here's another idea. Why not lift the Star Destroyer up off of this fortress, now that they don't need it anymore? It doesn't have to be too far up, just higher than a Jedi might be able to jump. This show shouldn't have been named after the main character. It should have had a more descriptive title.
Comscan believes they have a fix on the Jedi shuttle's location.
Dispatch 2 TIE fighters. If they find their mark, tell them to engage.
Why only 2 TIE fighters? I'm not a military expert or anything, but I've been utterly defeated in StarCraft, Warcraft, Age of Empires, Red Alert, and all 3 homeworld games enough times to know that if you're short on units, sending the bare minimum into a fight where they will be more or less evenly matched is a good way to end up with even fewer. I guess it's possible that only 2 TIE fighters were in working order, and he was too embarrassed to say, "Send both TIE fighters," so I'll cut the Snurf a little slack here. Then, evil old woman gets a promotion. This involves one of the Dune cosplayers using space magic to give her an extreme makeover. I literally laughed out loud the first time I saw this. She looks like she's in a cheesy black metal band, but she had to apply her makeup in the van on the way to the next gig, and there were a lot of speed bumps. Then the Dune cosplayers conjure her a flaming sword with some visual effects that look about as good as a sci-fi original from 20 years ago. So I guess the Dune cosplayers are cosplaying the miniseries, which would explain why their costumes are so lame. Then the TIE fighters take off to go get Ahsoka. What's Ahsoka doing? Well, she's flying low to the ground with a snail convoy at a speed that I've estimated to be about 5 miles an hour, because she's in a hurry. That guy and Ugly Droid are in the man cave, putting a new lightsaber together. 20-something watches for a while, long enough to see that the lightsaber is more or less complete, then she goes outside to talk to Ahsoka. They have a long, boring conversation. They talk about sucking at using the Force. They talk about making hard choices. They talk about how they feel about each other. They talk about the past. The one thing they don't talk about is how that guy is ready to go because his lightsaber is done. That's okay, because that guy comes out and tells them himself, possibly after searching the entire interior of the ship for these two. Unfortunately, the TIE fighters have arrived. Now, I understand that the idea here is that Ahsoka was moving this slowly to give that guy time to get his lightsaber together, and I assume that the plan was to take off as soon as he was ready.
Ahsoka wants us to go after Thrawn as soon as we're ready.
This is not something you can rush through haphazardly.
But how about this instead? Why not have 20-something give that guy his lightsaber back, and she can just use the dozens of Mandalorian weapons that she's actually proficient with? According to the internet, Ahsoka's starship has the same maximum atmospheric speed as a TIE fighter, so they could have been there by now. Let's call that a point. The TIE fighters shoot at them and Ahsoka's ship starts having stability problems. So Ahsoka and that guy run underneath it to do a double Yoda, preventing some of the snail crabs from being crushed to death. Here's another idea. Ditch the snail people. All they're accomplishing here is to involve the snail people in a hazardous situation that they're not suited for. Rather like asking the passengers of a short bus to help you change its tires. They're not going to speed up the work, probably the opposite. And there's every chance you're going to get sued for wrongful death, if not charged with involuntary manslaughter. Speaking of people with diminished mental capacity, 20-something has a plan to get them out of this mess, and it's amazing.
You'll only get a short burst out of the engines that way.
More than I need. Now!
Shockingly stupid, even for this show. TIE fighters are infamously maneuverable, no doubt requiring the pilots to have fast reflexes and a lot of training just to avoid colliding with each other, never mind the enemy. While it's a staple of Star Wars to see them crashing into things, and it always looks cool when they do, the situation has generally been tight spaces and the TIE pilots being out-piloted by the heroes they're pursuing. That's perfectly fine. It's quite something else to see a TIE fighter getting clipped in a head-on collision because the pilot let go of the controls in sheer panic like it's a car crash in a bad TV show. But I guess it's kind of fitting, since this is a bad TV show. Ahsoka's ship has face planted right into the ground, but it must have had good airbags because 20-something and Ugly Droid are totally fine.
Got him.
That would have been hilarious, were I not distracted by the taste of vomit in my mouth. Really, how good was 20-something's idea here? What if the TIE fighters had just rolled out of the way? Then Ahsoka's ship would still have been trashed, and the TIE fighters would still be shooting at them. Essentially, she made a life-or-death gamble on what amounts to a freak accident unfolding in just the right way.
Sorry to state the obvious, but this is gonna slow us down a bit.
How much slower can you get?
You're not slow. You're just retarded. Okay?
Then we see the guy with the weird face, giving Liquor Snurf the bad news.
The TIE fighters made contact with the enemy and engaged.
Results?
A successful strike on the Jedi shuttle was reported before we lost contact with the flight group.
Show me the reported location of the attack. Assuming the Jedi ship is downed, their options to prevent that departure are now severely limited, if not impossible. Which is why we should prepare for a ground assault. Immediately.
Why not just leave immediately? Or just move the Star Destroyer away from the fortress? I've already awarded a point for the illogic of staying docked with the fortress at the beginning of this episode, but now the Snurf has doubled down on the stupid. Now Ahsoka's only avenue of attack is from the ground, and he's committed to keeping it open to her.
Well, how do I act retarded? Just act natural.
Meanwhile, the good guys have decided to ride a couple wolf rats. I guess that's faster than walking, but how much faster?
Whoa.
Then, evil old woman gives a bunch of stormtroopers a pep talk to get them all fired up for a totally unnecessary suicide mission.
Let none pass.
Which is odd. Shouldn't it be Liquor Snurf, their commanding officer, giving them this talk?
Those are the volunteers.
Yes, Grand Admiral.
They were made aware.
They were. All were honored to make the sacrifice.
Have some backbone, dude. Then the good guys arrive, and that guy makes a profound observation.
He's taking the Star Destroyer with him.
Now I get it. Remember in Attack of the Clones when Obi-Wan used a little hyperspace attachment thing to get his fighter from one star system to another? I didn't. All I vividly remember about that film was being extremely proud of Anakin when he massacred an entire village of sand people. That was the best part.
I killed them all. They're dead. Every single one of them. And not just the men, but the women. And the children, too. They're like animals, and I slaughtered them like animals. I hate them.
Relax, Crywalker. You did good. I also remember being uncertain as to exactly which faction were supposed to be the bad guys, the Separatists or the Republic. That was okay for what it was. George Lucas was just trying to bring a little complexity to the universe, a little nuance. These days, the only uncertainty I have about Star Wars is which faction has the lower IQ.
Let's try the front door.
Then the good guys gallop underneath the Star Destroyer. Rather than going around from the side, they do it lengthwise to give every gun underneath the ship ample opportunity to shoot directly down at them. Naturally, the bad guys consistently miss, while the good guys concentrate to force the fortress gate open just enough to slip through. Liquor Snurf is a bit miffed by this. You know what might have worked better? I counted maybe 8 sources of laser fire coming from underneath this ship. Why bother trying to shoot Ahsoka when you could just concentrate all lasers right in front of the door? Create a continuous wall of exploding dirt and laser beams, and keep doing that for as long as you have to. That probably would have gouged out a giant pit well before Ahsoka got to it, and then good luck to her getting over that pit without getting shot in the attempt. I'm not going to award any points, it's just a wild suggestion. Next, we see the good guys using the deflection trick to fight a whole flock of stormtroopers, and hands down, this is the most feeble, low-effort action I've ever seen in Star Wars. I mean, just look at this. It literally looks like they filmed the low-speed rehearsal and just decided to go with it. Ahsoka looks more like she's flagging a jetliner up to the boarding gate than fighting for her life. It's pathetic. But you know what's even more pathetic? The way these stormtroopers just walk into it. What might have worked better? I counted at least 21 of these guys. If they had organized themselves a little better, perhaps into 2 diagonal lines, and then one line could concentrate all fire on one Jedi while the other line kept the other 2 Jedi busy, could 20-something deflect 10 blaster bolts at once? Would 5 each be enough to keep Ahsoka and that guy from advancing forward while 20-something was turned into Swiss cheese? Then could Ahsoka deflect 15 blaster bolts at once? And so on. It's already been established that a Jedi can be overwhelmed by blaster fire. No doubt many of the stormtroopers would still have died, but it probably would have worked better than this. Maybe shooting a little more frequently would help too. 2 points to Slytherin. During the course of this embarrassment to both sides, 20-something takes a hit to her Beskar armor, so Ahsoka tells her to go with what she knows better.
Sabine, blasters!
I guess it was totally worth it to wait for that guy to take the time to construct a lightsaber. Then we see the Dune cosplayers cooking up an evil spell by speaking magical gibberish.
Stop. You're going to take someone's eye out. Besides, you're saying it wrong.
You do it then if you're so clever.
Go on.
Wingardium Leviosa.
Wingardium Leviosa.
The stormtroopers come back to life, or at least become undead. Do zombies really belong in the Star Wars universe? I don't know. I don't really care at this point. What I find inexplicable is how the good guys are just standing there after the fight, like they're not sure what to do next. I know half of the show involves people standing around and doing nothing, but they have an urgent goal here. Are they not in a hurry? The stairs are right there. The direction they want to go is up. What's the delay for? Then, rather than just running up the stairs as fast as they can, they slowly fight backwards while the zombie troopers stagger after them. Some of them aren't even carrying blasters anymore. At some point, they get the brilliant idea of closing a door by slashing it with a lightsaber. I've never understood how destroying the controls for a door has any effect other than to make it totally inoperable, open or closed, but that's an old trope, so I'll let it go. However, maybe Liquor Snurf should have thought of that.
Man, you've been eating retard sandwiches again.
As we will see, there's more than one door on the way up, and having to cut through each one would have slowed the good guys down a bit. Then, the hyperspace ring grabs the Star Destroyer. Evil Old Woman tells the Snurf that they're ready to go. Then Liquor Snurf strongly implies that Evil Old Woman should go and sacrifice her life to delay Ahsoka.
We require a little more time.
That moment when you realize that your boss has butterfingers, but you're the one that's going to be working unpaid overtime to clean up the mess.
I understand.
Then we see that the good guys have finally figured out that running up the stairs is what they want to be doing now, but the zombies blow the door open, and they seem to have gotten their metabolism back because they're running normally now instead of zombie walking. No problem, the good guys just close another door, but wait, they run right into Evil Old Woman, and she's got her sword ready. Ahsoka tells 20-something and that guy to go get the Snurf. Evil Old Woman just watches them as they walk by, and then she gets into a sword fight with Ahsoka. 20-something and that guy reach the top of the fortress, but they get attacked by a pair of extra mean-looking zombie troopers. Meanwhile, Liquor Snurf gives the order he should have given about 25 minutes ago.
Our course is locked in, Grand Admiral.
Take us out.
The hyperspace ring and the Star Destroyer start to ascend, slowly, while 20-something and that guy have a hard time dealing with the Super Troopers. At one point, 20-something looks like she's in trouble, so with nothing left to lose, she decides to try using the Force one more time, and wouldn't you know it, she doesn't suck anymore. Then she helps that guy finish off the other trooper, and they both make a mad dash to get aboard the Star Destroyer. Then we see the zombie troopers blast through the second door and continue running up the stairs. This is just B-roll to get the editors out of trouble, but it raises a question. Why didn't they booby-trap the doors with these explosives? Can a Jedi deflect a cloud of shrapnel? I'm not going to award any points. If I went that far, I could just as well spend the next 5 hours thinking up different ways that the bad guys could have used these stairs to their advantage. I mean, for example, this Star Destroyer probably has a really big holding tank, right? Maybe if they pumped all the poo and pee down the stairs, the good guys would have been so grossed out that they might have just given up. It would have been really slippery, too. Maybe I should be a Grand Admiral. A whole fictional galaxy should be more fearful of me, a nobody on YouTube, than they are of the greatest military officer the Empire ever had. Then we see that the Star Destroyer is now too far away for the good guys to jump onto it. That guy is sad.
Too late.
Then we're back to Ahsoka versus Evil Old Woman, which looks like my mom fighting my grandma. And this isn't a joke that I make lightly, because Rosario Dawson is about the same age as I am. To be perfectly honest, she's a couple years younger. Then the zombie troopers arrive, and Ahsoka has to go back to that feeble twirling to deflect their fire. Then we see 20-something trying to talk that guy into a really bad idea.
No, I push you first and you pull me across.
Speed.
Ezra. I can do this.
I'm going to resist the urge to award a point here, but I will point out that this is another debasement of the Jedi. Institutionally, the Jedi had to train constantly from childhood into early adulthood. Mostly on his own, Luke Skywalker had to work long and hard just to get to a reasonably impressive level of skill. He had many frustrating setbacks, including an attempt at self-deletion. It wasn't until the very end of Return of the Jedi that he finally got his merit badge, and it was a qualitative achievement, not quantitative.
You must confront Vader. Then, only then, a Jedi will you be.
Never. I'll never turn to the dark side. You failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
And even then, his dad had to intervene to save him from a more powerful opponent. Now, it looks like becoming a proper Jedi is like leveling up in a video game, or in Dungeons & Dragons. With just that last additional experience point earned, you suddenly become a whole magnitude more capable. And 20-something isn't going from level 1 to level 2 here. She's going from sub-zero to off-scale silly. Then she helps Ahsoka with the zombie troopers, and Ahsoka finally defeats evil old woman. Poor grandma. That guy watches Ahsoka and 20-something finishing off the zombies from the Star Destroyer's hangar. Then he gets some good news over the radio.
LS-757 reinforcements have been dispatched to your position.
Liquor Snurf has made another blunder.
757 here. Copy. Thanks for the heads up.
It probably would have been better to have every stormtrooper left on this ship already standing guard in the hangar, just to make sure no one got aboard unopposed. Then, Liquor Snurf gets another brilliant idea that should have occurred to him well before Ahsoka even arrived at the fortress.
Have the main batteries target the fortress for bombardment. Open fire.
Someone with the IQ of a 12-year-old is very functional. They can read, they can write, they can hold a job, they can go to a play, enjoy a movie. In fact, it'd be hard to pick them out from the rest of us normal screw-ups.
He earns money, he pays taxes. He's just like you. ARC, the Association for Retarded Citizens.
Have the main batteries target the fortress for bombardment.
The fortress collapses as Ahsoka and 20-something jump onto Ahsoka's ship. Then they chase after the Star Destroyer, which in a matter of seconds running time has left the atmosphere of the planet. Then Liquor Snurf taunts Ahsoka over the radio with some backhanded compliments.
I know you, because I knew your master. I concluded your strategies would be similar.
What strategies? When has Ahsoka ever had a strategy? Does Dave Filoni know what the word strategy actually means? Ahsoka's plan, for lack of a better word, has always been to just show up and hope for the best, and it usually hasn't worked out for her. Both times that she encountered the hyperspace ring, she was forced to run away and hide. So what was her plan to deal with a Star Destroyer? Show up and hope for the best. How about the Snurf? He's a military genius. What was his strategy? To delay Ahsoka, to buy himself more time. But his approach was always to commit as few resources as possible, so the time he bought was minimal, and he mismanaged that time so badly that he nearly ran out of it. Then the Snurf gets away, and the good guys take a moment to contemplate near total failure. Next, we see the snail people just hanging out, and then the good guys arrive. And look, the rat wolves are still alive. That's nice. I wonder how long it took to dig them out from underneath all this rubble. Then, Ahsoka sees some weird owl thing that doesn't mean anything to anyone except Dave Filoni and maybe some of the people that watched his cartoons. How many of those fans stuck with the show long enough to see this? I don't know. Next, we see Darth Punkrock. Remember her? It looks like she's going to join forces with the Not Sand people. While it's not an empire, it's better than nothing, I guess. Then we see Darth Santa. Remember him? What's he up to? trying to cross over into a better universe. Can't say I blame them. Then we see the bad guys approaching the planet that the good guys left before arriving at the planet that the bad guys left. That's right. The season is pretty much over, and all that's really happened is that a bunch of people died needlessly, so that most of the good guys and most of the bad guys could swap places. Liquor Snurf is back in the galaxy far, far away, and Ahsoka is trapped in the galaxy farther away. What's the Snurf up to now that he's back? Nothing much, just admiring all those crates of blueberry vodka he brought with him. Seriously though, if we get season 2 and it turns out that all these crates are just full of more zombie troopers, I'm gonna laugh myself to death. If it turns out that they're full of sleeping witches, well, I'll probably just be bored. Either way, Sam Beckett has done his best, and he's probably glad to be leaping out. Next, we see a shuttle landing on board Green Woman's ship, and it looks like she isn't sure that whomever is on board this shuttle is friendly. The last time this happened on a New Republic ship, everyone died. Then that guy comes out of the shuttle with his helmet still on, so he can give everyone but the audience a big surprise. How did he get away? Was he wearing this helmet the whole time he was flying alone? If so, why? And why does he continue to wear it outside the shuttle? It's a mystery. Then, in the very last scene, we see Ahsoka and 20-something doing what they do best. Standing around, having a boring conversation.
Ezra's where he needs to be. And so are we.
Then we see Anakin doing the Force Ghost thing. Hey Anakin, maybe you should go check up on your son. He's on a path that's going to lead him to a bad place. The end. While the bad guys narrowly won the battle, they even more narrowly lost the game. If you think the score should have been different, just drop your count in the comments below. Maybe I wasn't being hard enough on the bad guys. I'm a little biased.
Long live the Empire.
But death to Disney Star Wars can't come soon enough, if it hasn't already. At the very beginning of this adventure, I said I would do a season-wide review. Well, here it is. First, I'm going to tell you what I liked about this show, or at least what I didn't hate. No surprise, I like the spaceships, and the soundtrack was mostly okay, though I could have done without the samurai music. I know the actors were doing their best. As an actor, what are you supposed to do when the script is garbage, and when you ask the director what your motivation is, the director says something about as inspiring as... You stepped in a puddle on the way here, and your sock is wet. Your job is really boring, but the pay is good. You're trying to decide what to have for lunch, but you're not that hungry. You're waiting for a bus that's late, but you're not in a hurry. Would you like to save $2 on your next energy bill? You haven't had a girlfriend in 10 years, but you're okay with that because you're gay. Imagine that you're a wooden fence post with a rusty nail sticking out of it. Imagine that you're a traffic cone in the middle of an empty parking lot. You're wondering if it might be starting to rain. You want to be a Jedi when you grow up.
I want to be a Jedi.
Or if it's a really important scene, you're at a funeral. There's a lot of people attending. A priest is delivering a touching eulogy, and you're trying to hold in the biggest fart ever. And when you ask the director for a little more, the director says, that person that died, you didn't know them very well. Even the actor playing 20-something had her moments. And you know what? The more I picked on her, the more I liked her. It's weird. The visual effects, like the acting, were good and bad. Sometimes it was surprisingly good. Sometimes it looked like a video game with the graphics turned way down. Now, I'm never going to trash VFX artists or animators. Believe me, I know full well that even at the best of times, when you're not asked to do the impossible or redo things dozens of times because of poor planning and indecision above the line, everything is still a function of the workload and the schedule. Like this quantum leap effect that I did from scratch. I gave myself a day to finish it, and it kind of shows. Oh well, at least it's not as bad as my audio. This brings me to the directing. Terrible. Which affects the editing, also terrible, because like VFX, editing is downstream of directing. What is directing downstream of? The writing. The writing is the worst part of this show, and the root cause of everything that went wrong with it. Not just the boring and illogical plot, but the sheer lack of humanity. I didn't really care about anyone in this show. I liked Discount Noah Hathaway, but only because it's hard to dislike a friendly kid, especially when they don't have an opportunity to be annoying because they're barely on screen. I like the two Darths, but that's mostly because they're evil, like me. Or at least I would be considered evil by some people. That's fine. I think those
people are retarded.
But kinship only goes so far. Grand Admiral Lickersnurf is evil, but I couldn't stand him because he turned out to be the complete opposite of what his setup implied.
Thrawn is not your typical Imperial officer.
That's right. He's not just a generic, uptight British villain that gets choked to death by Darth Vader. He's much more of a failure than that, and probably would have been choked to death 20 times were Vader around to do it. He doesn't even have the kind of armchair knowledge of military strategy that I picked up in high school.
Anyway, I picked up the dice again. Unbelievable. Another 2 6s.
Remember?
What?
No one wants to know some stupid story about how you beat your cadet school training officer at risk.
He doesn't make use of air superiority, he doesn't make use of superior numbers, he doesn't use surprise or deception. Having stormtroopers that can turn into zombies after they've been mowed down is a bit of a surprise, but that's not much good if all it buys you is an opportunity to have them mowed down a second time. He barely makes use of the environment, and when he does, it's way too late. He likes to observe logistics in real time, but he doesn't use that information to act ahead of time. He doesn't think outside the box, he doesn't even rise to the level of being in the box to start with. It's more like he is the box, and the box is empty, or he's that wardrobe from the Chronicles of Narnia, but if you climb inside, it doesn't lead you anywhere interesting. I felt cheated by this depiction of Thrawn, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. Aside from being utterly incompetent, he's got nothing else going for him. Just like the rest of the characters in this show, he's two-dimensional at best. That's a terrible combination with high stakes, like the fate of a whole galaxy, because on the one hand, we have the welfare of billions of people, maybe trillions, that we don't know and will never see, and on the other hand, we have individuals that we get to know almost instantly, because there's almost nothing to know. That taken with the fact that this show is effectively a prequel to the sequel trilogies, which no one cares about, results in a viewing experience that's about as intense as watching someone walk a tightrope 5 inches off the ground with a safety net. Contrast this with Andor. Andor is a show that's a prequel to a movie that's a prequel to the original trilogy, or a sequel to the prequel trilogy. Whatever you want to call it, we know that Cassian Andor is fated to die. Probably most of these characters are going to die before the show concludes, and yet we care about them. Take Andor's escape from the prison towards the end of Season 1. This environment is harsh, where prisoners are either pitted against each other or forced to cooperate, ruthlessly, all out of self-interest. Under this pressure, small acts of humanity make us care about characters that we hardly get to know.
His name's Ulaf.
I've seen him before. Hold that.
He's only got 40 shifts left. Just want to get him up and about.
Look at me, brother.
His name is Olaf.
I don't want to know his name.
He's got 40 shifts left.
I can't help him. I can't help anyone. He's lucky. He'll pass peacefully, which is more than I can say for the rest of us. Another week like this, and you'll be begging for what he's getting.
How long we hang on, how far we get, how many of us make it out, all of that is now up to us.
You need to help each other. You see someone who's confused, someone who's lost.
You get them moving and you keep them moving until we put this place behind us.
There are 5,000 of us. If we can fight half as hard as we've been working, we will be home in no time. One way out! One way out!
But what we do learn about them is more than enough to leave us wanting more. No one saves the galaxy in this show, at least not directly, and no one is facing an apex villain like Vader or Palpatine or the Thrawn that was depicted in the Timothy Zahn novels, and yet the audience is engaged. These small people with their small parts to play matter to us. I'll wager that most of us that have seen both shows felt more for this red droid than the whole cast of Ahsoka combined. Andor is everything that Ahsoka isn't, and that difference starts with the writing. I'm sure Dave Filoni is a nice guy in person, with more than a few creative bones in his body, but these are his characters, mostly. This was his opportunity. This was his show. And it sucked. If it stood alone as a wholly original work, it would simply be another poorly done series. As part of a franchise, it stands as something much worse. It's another nail in the coffin, another tombstone in the graveyard, another rude-sounding splash echoing out from the toilet bowl that is Disney Star Wars. I don't know for certain that Season 2 of Ahsoka will actually happen. It sounds like it got the green light, but knowing how unreliable Lucasfilm is, anything could not happen. If and when Season 2 of Ahsoka comes out, I'll be here to talk about it, good or bad, and you're welcome to join me. I want to thank you for watching, and I want you to remember that no matter how badly Star Wars is vandalized, they can't take away The Empire Strikes Back. That's yours forever. The Force is with you, and so am I.